My name is Sarah Ruiz, and I work at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. I'm actually in the middle of changing departments right now. Up until a couple weeks ago, I worked in mission control as a rendezvous officer for the space shuttle, and now I'm shifting over to the International Space Station program as a visiting vehicle safety engineer. I actually got involved with NASA when I was in college. I was a cooperative education student, which meant that I alternated semesters at school with semesters here at JSC working. And then when I was done with that, I was hired on full time and have been here for about 10 years. I've worked on a number of different projects. Most recently, like I said, I was a rendezvous officer in the Mission Control Center for the Space Shuttle. What that means is that we worked with the rendezvous and docking phase and then the undocking and fly around phase of the shuttle approaching and departing from the International Space Station. It's a little bit different than some of the other positions in mission control because instead of being in charge of a system or a piece of hardware, we were actually in charge of a phase of flight. And so we monitored things like the onboard computer guidance, the onboard sensors that are used to measure how fast we were approaching the space station and how far away we still were. And then we also monitored the procedures that the crew uses to fly. The final phase of rendezvous with the space station was a very manually flown process done by the astronauts. And so we worked with them in their training and in the procedures that they used to do that. Now that the Space Shuttle program has ended, I am moving over to the International Space Station program, and while I won't be in mission control anymore, I'll still be working with vehicles that are rendezvousing and docking with the space station. Specifically, I'll be working with the Russian vehicles, both the Soyuz, which is used to carry cosmonauts and astronauts to and from the space station, and the Progress, which is a similar vehicle that's used to carry supplies and cargo. And so I'll be working with those vehicles to ensure that each launch and each of those missions is safe. The most exciting aspect of my job really is just working with the space program. I've been interested in space and spacecraft since I was young. I think it's really amazing that we're able to send humans into this very unhospitable environment, and they're able to not only survive there, but thrive. And so it's the human aspect that really excites me the most, and that's why I loved working on the Space Shuttle program and why I'm excited to now be working on the Space Station program, which will be continuing for many years. This is probably the unpopular answer, but everything you learn in school applies to your job. Obviously, NASA is a very technical place to work, and so the math and the science and the physics and all of those technical lessons apply every day. But on top of that, all of the English and the essay writing and the stuff that may not seem completely applicable to something like NASA is also very important. You know, these days with the International Space Station flying, we're working with people not only at our own center and across NASA, but with people across oceans in Russia and in Europe and in places all around the world. And so those communication skills are very important to be able to work with other people, explain difficult concepts, and that kind of thing.